So this is a time for discussion, for any comments about the talk or your experience of that practice, or any questions that you may have, or anything at all.
If you could share the bell metaphor with the mental talk and mental image, because that really helped me in the last meditation. Also the comment about after establishing posture, establishing a smile. If you can speak to those, I think that might be helpful.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So the second one's a bit simpler. So for this practice in particular, but also practice in general, it can be helpful to, of course, establish our bodies in an upright, relaxed posture, but also to bring a smile to your face. You can sort of get the party started, as it were. That works quite well. You may have found that a smile naturally arose as you did this practice, but you can allow that to get started just by intentionally bringing a smile to your face when you start this practice. But that's also, it turns out, useful for most any form of practice. They say that a happy mind is a concentrated mind, and if you smile, you're happy. So if your body is smiling, then that can lead to concentration. So as far as the other point, there's this metaphor of a bell, that when you ring a bell, what you're trying to do is create a sound in the room, but to do that, you meet two physical objects, a mallet and a bell, and then from that, a sound is produced. So in the same way, if you use either or both mental image and mental talk, then that results in the effect that we're looking for, which is feelings in the body. We want to generate these feelings of compassion and love and joy in our bodies, and mental talk and mental images are the tools that we have to give rise to that. That reminds me that I'd also like to clarify that, how to put it? So I was discussing speciesism and that it's important that we take on the view, tell the story that all life matters, not just human lives, but other lives, the plants and the animals and so on. And I realize that we're in a somewhat strained environment, and I'm in no way saying that, for example, the racial issues that we're facing at this time in our civilization are unimportant or something like that. To the contrary, I think that racism is abhorrent and we should end that. I'm not in opposition to, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement or something like that. So just want to get that on the record, especially since that's being recorded. I'm just making a point that we tend to see things from the human perspective, and that that's also harming others, not just humans, but other lives as well. So we should end racism, both in our minds and in the world, and we should also do the same with speciesism. It's not mutually exclusive to do those two things.
Thank you, Tasshin. I enjoyed the talk. my question is about this part of the diet and why wouldn't loving kindness be the main course?
Well, it certainly could be. There'd be nothing wrong with that. You could do just loving kindness practice. That would, as far as I can tell, take you all the way. For example, you can definitely use loving kindness, and in particular the feelings of loving kindness that you generate in your body as the basis for concentration, and that can lead to a concentration that generates genuine insight. Not just, for example, the thought that all life matters, but so it's said, at least direct insight into our nature and things like that. That is transcendent wisdom. So you can use this to establish concentration, and that concentration, that flavor of concentration, can lead to liberative insight. So it could be the main course. And in fact, that might be easier, especially for people in our culture. And it's also very enjoyable. The feelings of concentration that come from this loving kindness are really nice. So nothing wrong with enjoying them, and nothing wrong with making them the main course. On the other hand, it can be useful to balance it out, to do other techniques as well. That's what I've found useful. So, for myself, I also work with the breath quite a bit, do things with my energy body, do investigation into certain questions, things like this. There are lots of different kinds of practices, and it can be helpful to try different things and to learn how they relate and work together. And so there's nothing wrong with just focusing on loving kindness. There's nothing wrong with having a different balance. It's sort of similar to, say sports or moving the body, where you could do just yoga or just weightlifting or something like that. But, it's also nice to do yoga and weightlifting. No reason you can't do both. Even if you do mostly weightlifting and a little bit of yoga, or mostly yoga and a little bit of weightlifting, that can be mutually supportive. Or, other things, whatever you like, kite surfing or whatever it is that people do with their bodies, contra dance, I don't know. It's all good, right? You could just do swing dance for the rest of your life. That would be great. That would be a lovely life, and yet it's also nice to do other things like yoga and weightlifting and kettlebell and, running, and soccer and so on, and you get to decide what the balance is.
That it's possible to have an enlightened mind without an enlightened heart.
I don't know how to answer that question. Yeah.
It seems to me that we're dealing with motivation when we talk about generating love and talking ourselves into it, admitting that we may not actually feel it, but we use cognition, language, and the teachings of science and Buddhists and all who affirm that, it would be good to feel good and to express that feeling in your emotional body, in your feeling body, and that will help your physical body too. But my issue has always been inauthenticity in regard to feeling. And the Buddhists seem to be very, I don't want to get off track, I just talk about different groups. It's really about, can I personally talk about love and authentically understand what I'm talking about when I'm doing it cognitively or when I'm practicing. love. You know, it's like the joke of the guy who goes to the manual books to learn how to court somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and motivation seems to be an issue that is at the core, you know, modus operandi. So if I could generate spontaneous loving kindness, it sounds like a contradiction. I'm generating it, and then it's spontaneous. So my experience is that it's very difficult for me to love anyone, or everything is even harder, universal love, unless I feel loved. I admit that I don't experience myself as having an enlightened mind or an enlightened heart. I experience moments of the possibility of enlightenment. And I'm definitely very cognitive and heady, but I'm really heart-oriented. And I get bewildered about how to get my head into my heart naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel the problem of religious ideology or any form of ideology that's trying to get me there by some other means than authentic encounter.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my confession. It's a question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm curious, what is your main dish
Mm.
and then your side dish, how you decide what they are.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me the main dish has to be inquiring into authentic motive and not talking my mind into trying to believe this is true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it appears to be projection.
Mm-hmm.
And inauthentic motive is there, I can find. That, oh, I'm faking it. You know, I'm in a religious community, so I better start looking cool and, you know. It's a social, I don't feel it's authentic enough for me. You know, I need somebody to, you know, it's like having a baby, you know. You can't fake it. So that's my confession. It's a question to community all the time, you know. This is what I come down to again and again and again when I go to places where people practice anything that's attempting to complete the human and honor the rest of life also. I really appreciate that point of Soryu, that there has to be some sort of way I can't, it's like Cerebro, you know, if I go through all these people in my head, then I'm starting to spin with, well, I think I might have left someone out. And then I have to, there's some sort of morality of how you can't please everybody, you know. And then if you try to go to loving everything, it gets abstract. It's like, what am I meditating on now? In loving kindness? And then so I have a theistic conversion experience that occurred to me. And so I have this avataric thing with Krishna. And I confess that publicly, but, you know, I don't really have Sangha around that. So I come to the Buddhists and wherever I can get a little Sangha. I'm sorry for the length of this confession. Please, I'll stop there. Because I could go on. It's a circle. It's a hermeneutic circle around the head, getting to the motivation of the heart so you can become authentic instead of trying to be good, trying to be nice, trying to act enlightened so that you'll become enlightened.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a poem about that, but I want to hear any response from you since you're in the hot seat.
Well, first off, no need to apologize. I appreciate you sharing this when it's clearly so close to your heart and felt concern. So it's not easy to do that, so thank you.
You guys make it easy.
So there was a lot there, but the main thing I heard was that you would like your spiritual path to be authentic and real and not made up, not fabricated, not inauthentic or fake. And you want it to be compassionate and not heady. You want it to be coming from the heart and not made up in your head. And how to do that. Is that right? Okay. Well, if that's, if I'm understanding that correctly, then there's two sort of similar things that I hear happening. One is whether to make effort or not, whether to do something contrived or natural, and then whether to do it from the head or the heart. And those are sort of intertwined, like effortful from the head versus natural from the heart. But I think they're actually separate. You can make effort from the heart, for example, or have spontaneous things happen in your mind, right? So the main thing I'd say is none of those four things, effortful from the head, not effort from the head, effort from the heart, not effort from the heart, none of those things are bad. It's not bad to make effort, and it's not bad to allow spontaneous things to happen. It's not bad to be in your head, and it's not bad to be from the heart. As far as I can tell, part of, but probably not all of spiritual practice is about, in fact, integrating these things. Integrating effort and not effort, integrating the head and integrating the heart, and also perhaps the gut, intuition. That's been useful for me in my practice. I spend quite a bit of time in my head. I like to read books and write things, for example, give talks like this. But I also try to spend time in my heart, and I try to spend time here, following my breath, for example, staying in my lower body. And the question is, how do these things integrate? Can I think clearly? Can I feel for myself and others? Can I trust my instincts, awareness? And any one of those things can be challenging, and then it's even more challenging to bring them together. And in fact, because these things are challenging, it can be useful to make effort. It can be useful to intentionally cultivate certain things, even if it feels forced or fake. There's really nothing wrong with that. We just spent an hour intentionally cultivating love, right? Love for ourselves, love for others, love for humans, love for non-humans. We did that intentionally, and you could even say it was forced and contrived. And yet, what were we contriving? Love, right? That's not so bad, right? It's good to do that, in fact. Maybe we don't even do enough of that, right? And in fact, if you make that effort enough, if you put forth even fake, contrived effort to generate that kind of love, then it can become natural, right? We have to do the same thing with walking, for example. We don't come out of the womb knowing how to walk. Other species seem to, but we don't. And we have to make effort, and we have to fail, and it's fake and contrived, and we fall down, and we stumble, and we're confused, and we cry, and we scream, and we try again, right? And then we learn, and then it's natural, right? But we had to go through this process of stumbling, of trying again and again. And that's certainly what it's been like for me with this practice. It was really boring, as I said in my talk. It was really artificial. It was fake. And yet I just kept going, right? Just planted those seeds again and again. And now it's not so hard. There are certain challenges. Some days it's easier than others, but it's more and more natural, effortless, right? But that's because I made effort previously that makes it effortless now, right? And even still, I have to intentionally think a thought or that, and then the body, and I can ride that wave. I think a thought, it generates feelings in the body, and I can stay with that, sending the love out. It feels effortless, it feels natural, but in fact, if I look at my experience and my memory, it's because I made effort in the past. So this is kind of a riddle of how does something that I think about generate a lived experience? How does something that I intend to do become effortless? They're not separate in my experience. The one leads into the other and even back into the first. So, of course, there are more depths of authentic love to reach. It's okay to not be content with where you're at right now, to look for more and more love. Nothing wrong with that. But if you're genuinely searching for that, you may need to make effort, may need to intentionally cultivate that.
Thank you. I concur.
Mm-hmm.
That's my experience. Just keep going.
Mm-hmm.
And then they blend into each other. And thank you for saying, inauthenticity isn't bad if it's honest. There's a conscience there, and I think it draws out authenticity just by that honesty.
Mm-hmm.
The question of what is authentic and what is head, what is heart, that's a subtle process. And somehow they seem connected
Mm-hmm.
for a reason, like why is the head on top of the heart? So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I can recite a poem that kind of sums this stuff up for me.
Mm-hmm.
If
Please.
It's called Between Twinkling Stars and Sparkling Sea. The celestial and the watery. And it's about surfing. Afloat on the ocean of love. Call down the heavens above. Ring the bells of sweet longing. Invoke the muses sing-songing. And swim to the brightest star. But if you can't swim that far, roll over in fluid rhyme, upturn the undertow of time, make great waves in your ocean, and ride the crest of your commotion. Surf along your rising ridge, fervent prayer shall be your bridge, till setting foot on heaven's shore. You hear the surf's applauding roar, and bow your head in glistening sand, each grain a star.